I'd like to call to order the March 21st, 2022 Long Hill Township Board of Education meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we do roll call, please? Oh, no, I'm sorry. My meeting notice. Adequate notice of the meeting of the Long Hill Township Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was sent to the Echo Sentinel and Daily Record on September 21, 2021. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the first floor entrance of the district's School District Administration Building, Gillette, New Jersey, and notices were filed with the Township Clerk, and notices were also mailed to all persons who have requested individual notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler.
Here.
Mrs. Daly.
Here.
Mr. DeJamos.
Here.
Mr. DeGiorgio.
Here.
Mr. Grosskopf.
Here.
Mrs. McLennan.
Here.
Ms. Nyquist.
Here.
Ms. Ruvalo.
Here.
Mrs. Case.
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you. Communications. I do not have any.
No.
Dr. Mucci, no? Okay, board, committee, and liaison reports. Let's start with Karen.
Oh, okay. Morris County Ed Services Commission, I had a virtual meeting on 4/11 and I attended. 2 items of note. We did approve the final budget. It's $35 million plus. And lo and behold, I think I'd mentioned before, they received a bid on the school building that they had closed. Well, another bid came in. And this one is for all cash, so there's negotiations and talk going on. With respect to policy, excuse me, you're going to see the agenda is sparse with the policies. There's an approval of a job description. At the last meeting, there were some policies that had to be referred to administration for review. They were rather complex. And some that still needed some adjustment. What we did review at the last meeting was a monumental work product of Melissa, the spreadsheet, for which she's going to have a plaque put in the board office. Every single policy we have on record is now on this spreadsheet by series, all the dates recorded. She developed a formula so it pops up when it's due to be reviewed again, because we have to do a review every 3 years. It's actually incredible. So what we decided versus, jumping on to a next series, she highlighted those policies in the series that we've already reviewed that are overdue. So we're going to split that up between us, and we're going to go through those first before we move on to anything new. I'm also going to be passing the 9000 series, which is really all the bylaws, some of which have really been reviewed already, to the governance committee for review. So that'll be going on. Our next meeting we changed because it was the original meeting was scheduled during break. So our next meeting is going to be on April 14th. Now, with respect to governance, you all got a copy of the Code of Governance, and with the back and forth, it might be that an incorrect version or a version that didn't have, an incorrect version because it didn't have all the fixes to the one that we wanted to send out. So I reviewed some of the fixes with Mrs. Nichols this afternoon, and she and Dr. Mucci are going to go over it tomorrow. So we're going to get a new version, so to speak. All your comments, Tom, they're going to really be addressed with the right version. Okay. I had incorrectly put down that May was going to be our first governance training. Our first governance training is going to be April. The April meeting is going to start at 6:30, and it'll be Charlene. And there were questions of how we're going to continue our training so that we could make sure we maintain the credits needed to maintain master status. And one of the big things was, do we need an instructor, or can we do it on our own? We do need an instructor. It has to be done by an instructor. So that's another thing. And then we made a request to change the date of the retreat to 7/18, which matches Charlene's schedule, so that can be done. So that would change the meeting also. And in line with that, I would like to remind you about filling out your form, your ethic, the, what is it called?
Financial
Financial
disclosure.
disclosure, thank
right.
you. Financial disclosure form. Because very, very shortly, and I don't know, maybe Kim is gonna go over the schedule for the CSA review. I thought you were gonna have that, right? You gonna-
Address it in governance if you want.
Okay. Well, folks, it's coming. That's all I can say. The first step is to have, Dr. Mucci is going to be updating her information onto the website. We're going to be utilizing the online format or the online form from New Jersey School Boards. 48 hours after her information is posted, it would be available to us for review. We will get approximately 3 to 4 weeks. So I don't have the exact dates in front of me. But the climax is that we have to get the formal review with the board with a compiled majority opinion of the review by July 1. So from here on in, which is mid-March to July 1, and we have meetings once a month, so you kind of know what we got to step through. You got to get your reviews in. Kim has to have time to summarize all of them. We have to have a meeting with us reviewing it with her before the meeting with Dr. Mucci. So it's a compressed review. And at the same time, it's going to be coming up like kind of towards the end, or maybe even in the middle, is our self-evaluation. So it's kind of like moving along quickly. The one thing that came up, and Tom brought this up, was the code of governance. What part is there as a signature, and that's a part that we had decided would be beneficial to have, because it would just indicate the board's commitment to abide by these norms and this code, and it would be something that we'd be put in the file. We hand over to Dan. It's not a state requirement. It's something only for our board. And like I said, it was just more of a symbol of our commitment to maintain the structure and the guidelines that are in the code. And it will be available online for the public to review. So that's it.
Any questions for Karen? I sat in on policy this week too, so thank you again to Melissa for all of her work and just the policy committee in general. I mean, Karen runs a great committee, always, and policy is no exception. Danielle?
I have no report.
Aaron?
I have no PTO update for tonight. I did virtually attend the Watch on Hills regional meeting where they went over their preliminary budget and a few other items. So they have moved to the mask optional environment as well, and had just reported out that I think very similar to what we heard here. There are some students who are choosing not to wear masks, some who are, and that rollout went quite nicely. They're having some busing transportation challenges with spring sports and those larger size teams. Very similar conversations to what we have here. Specifically, they really can't get a company, I think, to take on some additional routes, that it's slim pickings maybe in the world of busing for schools. There were so many accomplishments, impressive accomplishments of the students and the student teams that I could not list them all. But in brief, we had praises for the math team, for the robotics team, for the Model UN team, for the Mary Poppins cast and crew, the entire winter sports team. They went through updates of their seasons. And then there were quite a few significant, impressive accomplishments of students winning various awards and in various competitions. In terms of their budget, they will be able to move under a 2% increase for this coming year. They accredited that to a slight drop in their enrollment, which I had mentioned at the last meeting. And subsequently, as a result, they're able to reduce their staffing by 1.4 positions. And that is, giving them a savings. They also had an increase in state aid of $260,000. There was a discussion at the end of the meeting about religious holidays that weren't on the calendar. you know, and the idea that for students and families who celebrate these holidays, it's difficult when you do have to attend school. At the moment, it doesn't seem that the calendar has allotments for more days to be off, but they're instituting what they're calling homework and test-free zones, so that the students who are out of school at least know that the days they're missing are not days that they're going to be missing additional homework or tests. And that was the meeting.
That's good. Would a talent show fall under PTO?
The
So
talent
should
show
we
is
just-
coming,
Yes.
but I think April 28th.
Yeah, the 28th
So,
is right.
so tickets are for sale. They didn't send it to me, but you're right. Tickets for the
Yes.
talent show are for sale. I believe they were in the Friday flyers, and
Mm-hmm.
not a PTO thing, but I might as well say in case it's not on Dr. Mucci's update, the Central Middle School play is April 1st and 2nd, and those tickets are on sale as well.
Great.
There may be a butler in there.
There may be some 8th grade students I know in the play.
Thank you. Any questions for Ann? Okay, Matt?
I did not attend any meetings, but we did have a finance meeting. I believe, Melissa, you did sign all the bills.
Yes.
So thank you very much for that. Everything is in order.
Yes, both Ann and I did.
Oh, thank you. All right, I wasn't there, so I don't know. But that's it.
Okay, I think Dan will fill us in on what we need to. Tom?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Alex?
Very brief report. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met again with Mark Persina and with Assistant BA Robin Bomer, and Tom was able to join us on Friday afternoon. We toured Gillette School to, one, observe all the repairs that had recently been done over the summer, and to really take a very critical eye of the condition of the facilities that are there. For an old building, it's in remarkable shape. But there were a number of major projects that were identified for the future, both to improve the instructional and multi-purpose areas for our students that are there, and also to just really take care of some of the maintenance needs that are going on. So one of those out-of-the-box things that we didn't expect, but when we walk into the boiler room and see the really impressive machinery that's down there, there's also like a water infiltration issue that probably has to be addressed soon. We took a look at certain classrooms to see the adequacy of the students' furniture and some of the cabinetry that's there. A lot of that needs to be kind of prioritized at some point for repair or replacement. So we did a very thorough walkthrough on Friday afternoon, very educational for all of us, I think. Ms. Bomer had amazing questions that she was asking, so it was very educational for all of us. So that was the meeting that took place on Friday afternoon. We are going to continue our traveling tour of these schools with Central for a date to be determined in the future, and if there's an opportunity for other members of the board to join us. We're limited at 4, but we'll make those available if anyone's interested. So thank you for Mark for dedicating his time, energy, talents, and knowledge. There's a lot of there are a lot of investments that need to be made in order to continue preserving our school facilities, and I'm reassured having someone that experienced in this role to kind of get us in the right shape. So thank you all.
Any questions for Alex? No? Melissa?
No report.
Okay. Katie?
The Community Relations Committee is meeting on Tuesday, March 29th. We're going to be discussing kind of the committee roles and responsibilities for, the governance committees, and that'll be at 2 p.m. next Tuesday. The Force Long Hill Education Foundation would like to remind parents to please make an extra effort to arrive on time for pickup. We've had a significant tardy situation, parents coming quite late, so if people could make the effort to come a little bit earlier, that would be great. The Long Hill Force last meeting was on March 16th. They approved 5 grants that are on tonight's agenda for approval.
Yeah.
Also, on May 1st, there'll be Family Fun Day. The tickets will go on sale this week through their website. And they are still looking for sponsors and volunteers. If you're interested, please email lhdfoundation@longhill.org. Thank you.
Any questions for Katie? Are the parents going late to Millington? Is it because we can't possibly get there?
I think that's probably part of it,
It's a
but,
struggle.
it's a struggle, but some of the teachers are also due to be in other places, and so
Okay.
if we all can, I'm guilty just as
Yeah.
much as anyone else,
Yeah.
so if we can all make that extra effort, it would alleviate a lot of difficulties for the instructors.
Got it, got it.
But darn, that transportation is rough right now.
I feel like the background for my driving should be like doo 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 doo, like you're dodging things. Doo, doo, doo. Alex, did you have something you wanted to follow up on?
I'm so sorry. Thank you for recognizing that I had a mental gaffe. As an example, number 2 on the agenda is a finance item, but technically it's to transfer money for 4 significant projects that will be, again, reinvesting into our facilities. Many of these are visible to our community members and parents, so I'm sure they're going to be very happy to see, the repair and repaving of parking lots as we kind of dip into potholes every now and again. But these are important priorities, and I just want to call attention to the fact that it's on the agenda. Thank you very much, Ken.
Okay, great. I'll just add for negotiations, excitingly, we did come to an agreement with the administrators for our contract, and now we're just making sure that everything is properly memorialized, and then people will sign off. So just want to thank Alex and Tom for all of their work, certainly Dan for his work, and for Dr. Mucci and taking part in that. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So thank you to all of our committees for their continued hard work. We're especially appreciative to Mr. Borgo and the Finance Committee for their work on the budget. It is very exciting to see the additional grants from the Educational Foundation, and we're so excited for their generosity and support. Thank you also for highlighting the wonderful events that are happening in the school this spring, including the Central Play and the upcoming Fun Day. On tonight's agenda, you will note that the Student Safety Data System report for September through December. Students' health and safety is of primary importance to us, and it drives all of our decisions. We have added additional counseling services through Sage Thrive and bullying prevention programs at all of our schools to complement a very robust offering in each of these areas. What we're working on right now is researching a parental education program that will help parents underscore the importance of the appropriate use of social media and encouraging responsible digital citizenship with their students. Warren recently had a program like this, and we had asked if we could join their program, and the program was so well subscribed and the numbers were limited because it was an in-person event. So we weren't able to join that one, so we'll have to work on doing something on our own. And the reason for that is that we continue to see that many of our discipline and HIB cases are a result of misuse of social media outside of school, but then it carries over into school conflicts among peers. Motion 12 is for our grant-funded youth entrepreneurship program. The faculty have been working hard developing this new curriculum. We did have some additional works, so I was hoping that we could amend this motion to not to exceed 15 hours. Sorry, forgot to add. That is a grant-funded process. So what we will do if we move that to 15 hours is we need to take copies of all of the motions that the board approved. We submit that as an invoice, and then the FEA will reimburse the district for the payment for the development of those curricula. Motion 13 and 14 relate to our plan to ensure a smooth transition in our technology department following Mr. Paugh's resignation. We thank Mr. Paugh, who's here tonight, for his service to the district. We wish him all the best in his new endeavors. Mr. Fitch will assume the responsibilities throughout the conclusion of this school year, and we've already received a number of very qualified applicants and resumes for the Director of Technology position, and the interview process will begin shortly. Motion 21 is a proposed change to the 2022-2023 school calendar. So as we learned this year, we need more emergency closing days. Not that I'm hoping we have another fall flood to send us back before we even get started, but that definitely caused some difficulty for us this year. There also doesn't appear to be any movement in relieving us of emergency days for remote instruction. So that legislation is a bit stalled. There was some conversation at the state level that after you've used a certain number of emergency days, you could use remote instruction and count it as a school day. But we can't count on that being available for us next year, so we want to be proactive. So we'd like to add some more emergency closing days to decrease the likelihood that we will have to add days at the end of the school year or truncate our spring recess. We recognize the strain that disruptions to the regular school schedule can cause for families. Therefore, we have developed a schedule for November conferences that will take place with no early dismissals. So if we schedule grade levels at different times, we can offer full-day instruction to all students and offer teacher coverage for those leading conferences. As you will note, we calculated the hours of the professional development that we usually offer, which is 2 full days, and we replaced it with 4 delayed openings to increase the amount of emergency closing days available to us. The district is going to provide supervised care at regular drop-off time on the 4 days that we have scheduled for professional development at no cost to families. Parents need only to register for these services. So these are some strong efforts that we're taking. Our families have supported the schools through the pandemic, through school changes in schedules, and we want to be mindful of ways that we can work creatively with our schedule and in advance to avoid the early dismissals during conference time and stop some of that fractured nature of what November is when we have some really good instructional time available to us. And then also recognizing that professional development for our teachers is essential. But we can also recognize that we can work that in our schools, keeping the teachers involved in whatever professional development they choose from our list of options, and then provide supervised care for those who cannot work that kind of awkward 10 or 11 o'clock drop-off time when we have the delayed openings. And thank you very much.
Yes, Melissa.
Will the teacher conferences be offered via Zoom again?
Thank you. That's a good question. So I think that the majority of the conferences that we offered were via Zoom, and there are some where there will be situations where parents will come in person, but Zoom conferences will be offered.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Interim business administrators update.
Good evening. We'll briefly discuss our budget for the 22-23 school year, but first I'd like to thank all of our board members for their hard work and dedication to the Long Hill Township Board of Education. Special thanks to our Finance Committee, Mr. DeGiorgio, our Finance Chair, Mrs. Case, Mrs. Ruvalo, and Mrs. Butler, and my assistant, Robin. It's hard being an interim. You know, institutional knowledge is very, very helpful. And in this case, the board with that knowledge made my process much, much easier because a question was answered very quickly and it wasn't that I had to go investigate. So I really thank you for all that, and it actually made the process very, very efficient. I mean, we were done probably earlier than anyone, and we're just in a holding pattern. We've discussed it with our admin team and everyone else, so we are in very, very good shape with our budget. Lastly, I'd like to thank Dr. Mucci for her clear vision for the needs of the school district and insights during the budget process. We were laser focused on some of the priorities we needed: the pay-to-play, the free lunch program, the capital outlay projects that we're doing. So that message was quite clear coming from Dr. Mucci, and Mark and I, Mr. Prasina and I, implemented it based on the needs of the school district. Tonight, we were going to vote on a tentative budget, which will be submitted to the county tomorrow morning, and our final budget presentation, which will be a presentation, will be on Monday, May 9th. We are approving our tentative budget with an increase of 33 students. From 2021 to 21-22, we've had an increase of 33 students, primarily in the pre-K and K areas. We are anticipating an additional 10 students for our 22-23 budget, and I have provided you this evening with the state-approved version of the budget. So this is exactly what the state receives, is what you're receiving here tonight. It's a 71-page document, of which we'll briefly be looking at pages 1 through 10. Mr. Grosskopf had come into my office, and we went over a little of our budget. So he sees all of the trials and tribulations of a state version of our annual school budget. We will refer to our line numbers, which are located on the far left, and our columns labeled 22-23 proposed. The first line I'd like you to look at is line 100, which is our first line, which is highlighted in yellow. As you can see, our tax levy is $17,770,453, which represents a 2% increase. I'd also like to note that this is the first year, I think it is in 3 years, that you're going to have bank cap. That means the Long Hill Township Board of Education could have increased their taxes by an additional $107,000 more, but we opted not to do that, and we could spend those dollars without going for a separate question in any of the next 3 upcoming years. Hopefully, we'll increase that over the years, and if housing development opens, or if something happens that we need capital outlay improvements, we could then increase our tax levy more than 2% because you have that bank cap. So that's a real good thing to have. Our next area that we'll be looking at are lines 440 through 470, and that's our state aid. And you could see the 107,132 and the 57,962 is our additional state aid that we have, in fact, received, directly attributed to an increase in population. If our population remained stagnant, our state aid probably would have been stagnant. We have 33 more students, plus an anticipated 10 more, so we're looking at 43 more students. And the incremental cost for that is going to cost the taxpayer a little more. That's why we received the additional state aid. The good thing about it is it's almost, I like to refer to it, it's as the plane flying to Florida. If you have 15 empty seats, you're still going to Florida, so you could sell off those seats at a discount and generate more revenue. So the students that are coming in are sprinkled throughout many different classes, predominantly in the pre-K, K, and 1. It doesn't look like we'll have to add additional staff. We're just going to go back to our pre-COVID numbers. So that's a good thing. The price of everything is going up. You know, we received additional state aid of $165,095, but copy paper is up, filters are up, fuel is up, delivery charges on all of our supplies are increased, school supplies, paper towels, everything that you buy in a school, the same as you buy household items as parents. You could see it in the grocery store, and we're actually feeling that impact too at a school district. So although we received the extra money, we've earmarked some of that money, as the memo I had sent you. It's for our operations of maintenance and plant, which is the cleanliness of the schools. It has been an issue in the district. I mean, this past Monday, some of the classrooms weren't cleaned at Millington, and this is unacceptable. So we are out to bid for another company or this company with a management layer in between to help improve the cleanliness of our schools. It's inexcusable. The workforce is starting to get a little stronger. We were held hostage that if someone left the district, we couldn't find someone to hire. So now things are starting to loosen up. We're a little more confident that we will see improvement in the cleanliness of our schools. And I think that's an issue. You'll hear it as you go to the ShopRite, and I want you to hear it here too, because it is in fact a problem. Our capital reserve, line 620, it's $1 million. What that is extra dollars from prior year's surplus that we allocate into our God forbid fund for capital outlay. So this is not an impact on the tax levy. These are dollars from prior years that we're using to do the projects that Mr. DeJamos has spoken about. So we're gonna do the parking lot, we're gonna do the bathrooms, we're gonna do the shed, and we're gonna do the fire alarm system from those dollars that were generated in prior years, no new tax dollars, and we're using that excess money to do these projects. So that's a positive thing. What you'd like to do is try to replenish that every year. So if we're spending $1 million next school year, during this school year's budget, we'd like to try to generate $1 million in surplus and replenish those dollars back so it's perpetually running forever, so to speak. So that would be our goal.
The bathrooms you're talking about are the teachers' bathrooms, right?
That is correct, yes. Yes. Our state revenue is line 770, and that's a lot of our small local grants plus student activity, which is a new gap statute that must be done and must be budgeted for. So that is line 737. So that's the student activity money that is now running through our financial system, which is better internal controls for all school districts throughout the state of New Jersey. A lot of bigger districts, you could fund your yearbook. It's, in excess of $110,000 for yearbook fees. And now that it's running through our financials, there's more eyes on it. There's a process to pay, and, there's students involved. So we want to really tighten up that component to make sure we're in compliance with the state of New Jersey. And lastly, we have line 830, which is page 2, which would be our federal revenues. And you could see a significant decrease of $656,000, and it's nothing to really get alarmed about. We're not getting any new ESSER money, COVID money. We've received an abundance of COVID money that's reflected in the 21-22 school year, and as you look to the right, you'll see zeros all the way down from lines, and you could see ARP ESSER, ARP ESSER, ARP ESSER. It's clearly identified. So that money we have, I don't want to say it's bankrolled, but in a sense it's bankrolled, and we could spend it over 2 or 3 school years. So that's what we're doing. We're planning, we're meeting with our administrative team, we're pivoting to new needs of the school district and spending that money for non-reoccurring expenses. That's the key to using ESSER money. So that's why you would see your federal monies down. And we are also mandated to budget Title I, II, III, and IV at 85% of current year allotment. So that gives the government, if they ever want to cut us back, we're only budgeting at 85%, and our expenses are at 85% less, so therefore we have a balanced budget. And that represents our revenue side, and I just want to again commend the board. If you look on line 830, that will show a decrease of $85,246 on page 2, and that's from refinancing our debt service. That is a direct savings to the taxpayers, which is a good thing. It's almost like refinancing your house. We refinanced our bonds, and in one school year, the 22-23 school year, our payment is $85,000 less, and that trend will follow for the next 3 or 4 years because the interest rates have in fact went down.
Line 935.
Or 935, I'm sorry. Correct.
Just a little further down.
Got it. And then our total revenues would be line 1,000, and you can see that is $21,849,453, and that has to tie to line 90,000 on page 10. And the state has a lot of quirky software, and it performs maybe 800 to 900 edits on your entire budget that must be completed and in compliance, otherwise you're not allowed to submit your budget. So I'm proud to say that this budget has 0 fatal errors, and we could, in fact, tomorrow transmit, which is a good thing.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The revised budget proposed,
Okay.
oh, I see. So the revised budget is based on aid we received.
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. So pages 1 and 2 would be your revenue side of your budget, and then the expense side of our budget, and I'd just like to give you some statistics. Salaries make up 54% of our budget. Benefits make up 18% of our budget. Maintenance of operations, which is cleaning our buildings without any of the supplies, is 10% of our budget. Transportation is 7% of our budget, and tuition is 5% of our budget. So if you add all that, we're at 94% of items that are basically necessities to spend in an effort to keep your buildings open. So that leaves us 6% of $20 million, just rounding. So we're talking about $1.2 million of discretionary money. And that's, when you put it that way, it's nothing. I mean, everything else is contractual. That 1.2 million, we're doing the best we can to really spend it to the best of our abilities, and our admin team understands that, which is an easier sell. As stated previously, some increases throughout the budget represent increase in positions from 0.5 to full-time and reclassification of positions. Some of our accounts, according to our auditor, were basically not accounts, so we had to actually put them on the proper account line that are in compliance with this state budget. I'd also like to say is that a lot of school districts may have different account codes, but the account codes you see here are universal throughout the state of New Jersey. So if you're talking about a 610 account, it's a supply account in Long Hill, in Camden, in Woodbridge. They're universal, so that's where we want to get to. That's why I thought it was important that you actually have the state budget in front of you. I've also highlighted some line items in our board resolutions, lines 89,660, which are our architect, our auditor, and our attorney. So those amounts are highlighted just to show you what you spend, and we have to do a formal board resolution identifying those amounts in our resolutions this evening. Positive of all of our numbers is that in the 21-22 school year, we had an increase of $97.77 for a home assessed at $506,000. In 22-23, this proposed budget, our increase is going to be $80.08. So that's a decrease of $17, or approximately $16 per $100,000 of valuation. So if you had a home at $300,000, 3 times 16, it's $48. Reconfirm those numbers with the auditor, so I'm pretty confident that those numbers, when you get your tax bill, are going to be very, very accurate. Just an aside, we make up maybe 68 to 73% of your entire tax bill. You have your town, and you have your library, and you have county tax. But for our school portion, to educate students in 22-23, the increase for Long Hill Township will be less than it was in 21-22, which is a good thing.
I know that Long Hill Township recently went through a tax reassessment this year on many homes. Are these numbers based on the reassessment?
These numbers, I wanted to compare exact apples to apples, so I used last year's numbers. In a reassessment, what usually happens is your value, it would increase to current fair market, but your per hundred for tax purposes would decrease proportionally. So somehow, some way in a reeval, your taxes go up 3 to 4% just in that process.
Okay.
But it's not directly attributed to the numbers that we need to raise for taxes.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to compare apples to apples, because I knew they were going through a reassessment. And then for a public presentation, I'll probably have 2 numbers, one apples to apples and one with the reassessed value.
So if the town somehow gets more in tax money, real estate tax money, does any additional amount get budgeted to the school district?
We would, at our next meeting, we would have a tax resolution asking for the exact amount that you would see on line 100, and then you would another resolution for our debt service, which would be on line 860. So we would ask for those 2 exact numbers. If they had a windfall of taxes, their liability to us are those 2 numbers.
Sorry, one more question. So with the expenses that we have increasing on a year, and we anticipate every year these expenses will go up, so that discretionary amount is going to become less and less and less with the increase of all the expenses that we have, even the fixed expenses that we were talking about. Anticipating that 3, 4, 5 years down the line, that discretionary amount, taking into account the fact that you know, the budget may change, our revenue may somehow, may change slightly from the state aid and everything else. What should we be doing, knowing that that 6% is gonna shrink little by little in the years to come? I know there's more revenue streams that we have to think about, but some of which you've already done as far as refinancing the debt, that has saved us a lot of money. But what do other districts do, seeing, I'm just foreshadowing this, 3, 4, 5 years down the line?
I think, Dr. Mucci, another focus point was a before and after school program. Before and after school program, we've met on 2 occasions already, and I think sometime in the future, that could generate in a district such as ours an excess of probably $170,000 to $240,000 of discretionary monies for the school district. And
In lieu of paying a private
correct.
service such
In-
as.
Yes, in lieu of paying a private service. And it's not as if that money is unrestricted. What would happen there is we would start prorating out our electrical bills for the time that the before and after school, the custodial bills, and then that would free up some money on our side of the ledger that we would increase our discretionary spending. But that, when we've done it before in other school districts, was a very, very, very profitable program, using our teachers, using our paraprofessionals, using our buildings, our food vendors. So everything that we've done was just an extension of the regular school day. And it was very, very well received by all the parents in our community, because their second grade teacher could in fact be their after school teacher. And, when mom and dad pick up at 6 o'clock, they're not going from 6 to 8 doing homework. They're now having some quality time with their child because the homework was performed in the before and after school program. That's one of the issues. We're also looking at a shared service with our maintenance. I'm regurgitating this every week, but everyone is so enthusiastic until the rubber meets the road, and then there's a lot of hurdles and there's a lot of questions. So now we're looking at possible another community that's close to ours, that we could in fact utilize their people on a pro-rata basis, because we may not need 3 full-time maintenance people. We may need 2.4 or 1.6. And if we find a progressive school district that's willing to partner with us, we would love to do it, and we think it could work. And so we're in talk with that. We're also in talk with another school district about potentially providing more nutritional opportunities for our students here. So we're looking at a lot of different avenues to try to, some are revenue generators and some are things that are just good for kids.
Yeah.
So it's a two-pronged approach, of which the direction I'm getting is, what's good for kids, highest priority, the revenue will fall second. So that's the leadership I'm taking from Dr. Mucci, and basically trying to investigate those type of areas to provide a better school environment for our kids.
Thank you.
Okay, Dan, are you done yet? So, because I want to let you finish before we take maybe more questions.
I was just talking about the estimated increase. It winds up being $16 per 100,000 of assessment. And it may sound that we may have extra dollars, but one special ed placement is $100K. So if someone moves into the district, it's a private school placement between the para, the tuition, transportation, it's in excess of $100K. So we have one discretionary, to be determined placement for the next school year. Would we like to have 2? Absolutely, but what we can afford and what we could put in our budget is 1. So it's not as if we're stockpiling extra dollars. This is what we have, and on a $20 million budget, I like to remind people, if you spend out 96, 97%, you're going to have money at the end of the school year. Which 4% of 20 million is 800,000. So that's the normal cycle in a public school. So that money coming back to us is a good thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Tom, did you have something?
Actually, Melissa, I would like to point out a couple things to you. I have recently read that although 20% of the town went through a reassessment, next year we get to all do it. Yeah, the township, from what I read in the echoes, the township is putting that forth. I don't know if it was accepted or is going to necessarily happen. But I also want to let you know that how a reassessment works is, if somebody lives in a lower income home, that probably is not going to rise. And somebody lives in a higher income home, that probably will rise more. What goes into it is you've got the K through 8 budget, you've got the high school budget, you've got the township budget, and you also have the library budget. So everybody puts in their total sum. And then you take the total sum of all of the values of all the homes, okay? And then you take your slice out of that total sum, multiply it against the grand number, and that'll be your tax base. That'll be your tax rate. So if you're lucky and you didn't get hit with a reassessment like I did, ouch. Yeah. You do live in a palace, but that's okay. But sometimes you're like, oh my God, everybody's asking for more money. It's really coming out of one big pot. We're only one part of that pot, and I wish the public knew that. So we can only control so much.
Do you have a question for Dan?
I was just trying to help on that one.
Okay.
And Dan, I would like to give many thanks to Dan. 'Cause as he mentioned, I was in his office the other day and got a lot of good numbers. We'll talk about those later.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan? I will circle back on the reassessment because I've been reassessed every single year I've lived here.
Really?
So we could talk about that later.
I think this
Okay.
is real and imaginary. I don't know.
Comments from the public on agenda items. Running to the podium. Okay, resolutions. Let's start with the minutes, number 1. Karen, will you move those in, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Abstain.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay, financials, number 2 only. Danielle, will you move in the tentative 2022-2023 school budget, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Financials, number 3 through 9, and will you move those in?
So moved?
Second.
Questions?
I just want to ask about the participation fee. So I'm looking at the baseball, softball, that's $416 per child.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to say that this will be the last time we will see this. This will be a good example of our 250 maximum, or 200 maximum, I think it was. So you would see that next year baseball, softball would be 200. The track and field would also be $200, and then the middle school art cast theater would be $150, and middle school theater art crew would be $75. So 200 would be the maximum, so those numbers would be significantly reduced, and that would be effective July 1st.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
A yes, but abstain to number 9.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Special education, number 10. Matt, will you move that in?
So moved.
Second.
Tied there.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Tom, will you move in personnel, number 11 through 17 with a friendly amendment to number 12 to increase the hours not to exceed from 10 to 15?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions?
Just want to say thank you to Trevor for all his hard
Oh,
work.
yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Trevor.
Thank you for
Everyone has a password list, right?
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes, but abstain from 17.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Alex, will you move in curriculum number 18, please?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rivolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Number 19, policy. Melissa, will you move in, please?
So moved, but I have a question.
Second.
Second. Okay, Anne. Okay, Melissa, your question?
I just want to verify that the job description that it's replacing, where it says district counselor, is that the district guidance counselor?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
but we'll still, I mean, we still have a district counselor because we have 2 district counselors.
Right.
So we're not completely removing the district counselor job description because we'll still have
right.
one.
Right, yep.
Got it.
So don't delete it from the spreadsheet.
No, no,
Right, exactly.
Good question.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rivolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Katie, will you move in others, number 20 through 23?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, it's,
Question?
Three-way tie.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Abstain from 20 and yes to 21 to 24, 23.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rivolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay. Any items for discussion? Old business? Any new business?
I'd like to make some comments.
Okay, Tom?
We're going through a tough time with this budget, but so far Dan has done a fantastic job. So many thanks to Dan, his team, and the finance team. Wonderful work. But my comments go to this as well. Morris County is not raising our property taxes at this time. Our district is getting more state aid money this year, which I believe is meant to reduce stress on property taxes, as reported in the echoes. And inflation is currently at 7.9%. This is a time to worry about fixed costs and necessary repairs. For example, the 3 separate fire alarm systems in the Millington School, the oldest from 1935, do not even speak to each other, as we found out. But this is not time for filling coffers for other wish list items. The majority of our township's tax revenue is derived from personal property taxes, as opposed to many other towns that have a base of support from business ratables. We need to act as fiscally responsible managers of tax dollars and effectively oversee our resources. This board is charged with a fiduciary responsibility and to be mindful to all of our taxpayers. When many people, for example, young families, the poor, and the elderly on fixed incomes, are struggling with paying for personal necessities, we are cautioned to ask for an increase that meets our needs and not necessarily our wants. A budget increase may be a bona fide need, but there is always some room in every budget. The board needs to show it is a steward of district resources and that it is cognizant of the impact of its fiscal decision on all taxpayers. So, as I have mentioned in an email earlier, I hope that we could find some way to trim something out of the budget so that we don't come in at the state mandated maximum of 2%. Dan, just looking at some of your numbers, there may be 0.6% of money that might be shaved out of there, which is to most people like nothing. It's a rounding error. But the people looking at it and commenting on, are we doing our job or are we just trying to take everything that we can get for maybe next year or the year after? I caution that we should make sure that we're doing the right thing as fiscal stewards.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Any other new business?
Well, I guess I
Karen?
want to comment, because, and some of us would know that, sometimes, unfortunately, we did think it would look good in the press, and we did come in considerably lower than the 2%. Basically, what we did was we mortgaged our future, because it caught up to us. So very honest, I'll just say, on another board that I sit on, we actually asked the populace, would you rather have us give you one shot of a 1% increase, or if we just gave you 0.25% each year? They took the quarter, because they didn't want to get that top. They didn't care that we were just getting the quarter, even though we didn't need it directly. I mean, indirectly we needed it. But so what I'm trying to say is, the 2% is, I just say, for what has been accomplished, very honestly, with this budget and what they've done, that 2% is amazing to me. That this was able to come across with, and get what in it, get the budget, get in it, what it did with 2%.
May I have the next comment?
Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you very much. So I agree with fiscal prudence, absolutely. It's incredibly important, and it's one of our biggest priorities as a public body and as public officials. And I can point to many other examples, frustratingly, where I feel like my generation has inherited infrastructure that's falling apart because, for example, a lack of continued investment and maintenance that was deferred for many reasons, one of which was budgetary priorities. At the time, they seemed like prudent, budgetary priorities, but in the end, they're even more costly because you've basically squandered your inheritance. I haven't been on the board very long, but I think this is the third budget cycle that I've been through. If not, it feels like it feels like it. But what Karen is saying is absolutely correct, and this is in no way intended to point the finger of blame on any past administration. But what you noted is the fact that there's inflation going up at 7%. We have a state cap of 2%. There's a 5% differential there that we are already absorbing in a very difficult budget period, right? For us to try to come even lower underneath that means that we're making even greater sacrifices and compromises for the staff and students that are depending on this budget. And in a sense, I think it's financially irresponsible to be too tight with budget increases because you are already trying to absorb higher costs in transportation, higher costs in almost every other purchase that a district's responsible for. So, I do think that there should be fiscal prudence. I think there has to be fiscal responsibility. But from my limited view, when it comes to buildings and grounds, there is a growing list of reinvestment that needs to be made into the schools in order to make sure that we don't take our inheritance and pass that buck down for another generation of students to suffer or to not benefit the way all of their predecessors had. I fully support the work that's been done in this budget. It feels so much better getting to a point where we're voting on 5-year contracts for administrators, 5-year contracts for teachers, investments into the parking lots and other like life-saving equipment, as you'd mentioned, not having to lay off educators. This is the job that we've been called to do, and I think the people that we've hired to do it have done a remarkable job. I applaud them, and I thank the board for fully endorsing the budget that we presented.
Thank you. Wait, Anne?
I appreciate the point as well. One thing I think that is important is our enrollment is also increasing, and that's just something we need to keep an eye on. When we go back to the item for the pay-to-play, I am thrilled that we're going down to $200 max per parent. But that said, if my child, or not my child, any child participates in 3 sports, it's $600. If they then participate in Central Middle School in the spelling bee or another enrichment activity, it's another $40 a pop. You're at $700 for that family. And, I just think of what you're saying, the struggling families in town. There are kids who choose not to play right now, and there are kids who, those are tough financial decisions. So I feel like if we have a quarter of an expense to trim, we need to look at those compromises we made over 10 years ago where we were paying for the kids to be part of the sports. And we were paying for certain things that we had to pass along to the parents because there were decreases in state aid. I mean, I don't remember what year it happened.
11, oh, sorry.
It's under
I thought it was a
Chris
question.
No. I remember. I remember it was difficult choices for districts throughout the state, and this was something that we as a board has inherited. It is something that the board at the time did because of significant decreases in state aid. But those are significant fees that I think we just need to look at. I also want to say that the district is doing a tremendous job. I so appreciate that we're looking to increase revenue streams. I did like your explanation about the aftercare and exploring it, because I think that actually combines what's best for our students with just some innovation, right? We're not looking to make money. That's a service we provide as a district that we might be able to change. So I like that creative thinking. I really like that at meetings frequently over the last few months, we've been talking about decreasing our expenses through these smart choices for our maintenance, like the lighting improvements. And I know there's more, but I know with the lighting, it's like we put in that light bulb and now we've decreased the expense. I feel like there are multiple items like that where we're trimming the budget as much as we can, but then we're also looking at these past practices that we had to accept in the past that now we don't. I could be wrong on this, but when I was watching the Watchung Hills meeting, I believe our town valuations are going up in Long Hill, that they spoke about that versus population. In fact, more than our neighboring towns. I mean, for, I'm sure, a variety of reasons. But I think if I were looking to buy in this town, I'd be much more inclined to buy in the area of Central Middle School, looking at the way Central Middle School looks now, than if I were visiting, a friend who was sledding in that lot 2 years ago and the way it looked. And I have seen online and heard from people in town speaking about in the past, maybe 2 years ago, why our schools don't look great. Why the screens was one thing I remember someone pointing out, had holes in them. And I think back to Alex's point, Buildings and Ground is doing great work. We've been doing great work as a board and to move towards these things. But we are coming out of a position, I feel like, where we need to move in the direction where we can maintain this momentum. And we've come out of a few very hard budget cycles where we've had to go above the 2%. So I can see from a perspective that, why aren't we below the 2%? I'm very pleased we're not above it, as we have been in recent years. And I think we're in the right place. Like, maybe next year we'll have some revenue increasing strategies, that we can talk about. So I look forward to it.
Katie?
I don't want to feel like we're jumping all over Tom, because it comes from a prudent place, and it comes, but from my experience on the board, seeing how when we were in such deficits and we were reducing staff and not ordering new books and other things, because you saw the compound effect of years of I mean, there was one year where we actually reduced, instead of going up 1%, we went down 1%, and it crippled us. And we're only going to get bigger. I mean, I believe the trend, especially if some of these new developments come in, that we're going to get larger and larger. And we have concerns about space already. We're already charging parents for busing, for sports. There's only so much fat to trim, and I think we are about as lean as you could possibly be. And I feel it would be extraordinarily irresponsible to trim the fat any further, because I don't think there's any to be trimmed. And like he said, there's $100,000 in our little security for one special needs child that needs to go in the district. I mean, how many surprise ones do we get a year? There's usually more than one.
We had three last year.
And those children, by their rights as citizens of our town, have that right to go to those schools, and it's very important to support that. But we're in a precarious situation, and just $20,000 is too much to give away.
Melissa?
Yes, I want to make this clear that I'm only speaking for myself, nobody else on the board. But I was lucky enough to be appointed to the Finance Committee right after Katie and I were elected, and I think we started in 2019. how far we've come, which was largely, the deficit that we were in was largely the result of not get it going to 2%. The fact that we've turned it around in such a short amount of time is incredible. However, when it comes to fiscal responsibility, I think that we also have to look for, and again, I speak only for myself, our township committee, as to how to alleviate the strain on that families as well. Especially, as you said, if we're looking at a reassessment, and what we as a community are doing to bring businesses here that could make it a little bit more affordable to live in this town. So I absolutely understand your concern, because it's stressful on a lot of families, especially those who have multiple children or very limited incomes. But I can absolutely assure you that the care that went into the budget, I'm actually very proud of our budget, because of what's been done, especially in the last year with Dan's assistance and Dr. Mucci's assistance. I feel very proud of the budget and how far the board and our business administrator's office has come in the last 4 years, 3.5 feels longer.
It does feel
Okay, Matt?
Just to also follow up on your point of the cliff we don't want to fall off of.
Yeah.
Back to your point of, we had 2 or 3 years where we did not go up to the 2%. We have 6% of our budget is already earmarked. And most of that's already covered by not salaries, but contracts we already have in place everywhere. Not just salary, not just benefits, but maintenance. That 2% is already gone, for the most part. So the fact that we can stay at 2% for now, I think, is a wonderful job. But I think more to your point is, we need to do a better job looking for more revenue.
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side.
Absolutely.
But
Okay, anybody else?
This is not related to this at all, but I feel we skipped to thank Force for the grants.
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, monumental. I mean, that $4,600, I mean, it's monumental. Really, it's tremendous.
And hopefully there'll be more, so people come to the fundraiser.
you gonna sell ice cream there?
Whatever they let us do.
Hey, you're
It's
there.
gonna be at the Sterling Hotel, so.
Never mind.
But there'll be other fundraisers. There will be plenty of other fundraisers.
Any comments from the public? Anne, will you move us into executive session, please?
I'm getting to the point where when people say Ann, I start to look at Dr. Mucci.
I do the same
I'm like,
thing.
oh, you mean me today?
In this meeting, she's Dr. Mucci, though.
The board will enter into private executive session to discuss 2 harassment, intimidation, and bullying reports. No action is anticipated following executive session.
Second?
Second.
Aye.
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 Oh, excuse me.